The shooting range. In this episode, pages of history, a pickup line for flying aces, ground study, Soviet rockets, and Metal Beast's new Landship. The title of the main Landship has long been held by the Soviet T-35 heavy tank. It still holds the record for the number of turrets, but today's Metal Beasts has set a new bar for tank size and total crew number. Please welcome a French super heavy tank, the Char FCM 2C bis. The main caliber of this machine is a 155mm howitzer with 100 degrees of traverse and elevation angles between -10 and +10 degrees. Auxiliary calibers include a couple of machine guns. The engine is in the center of the hull while the transmission is in the rear. The crew of this tank includes the commander, the driver, the gunner, 4 loaders, and no less than 5 machine gunners. The total is 12. Compared to other nations' tanks of this class, the French Heavy looks simply ginormous. The first thing you're likely to encounter is the bewilderment of those allies who only started playing and never expected to see such a monster at the spawn point. Watch out where you drive, lest you smash a careless teammate. You won't have to do that for long, though, since you're going to be left alone soon enough. With a top speed of only 15 kilometers an hour, it's impossible to keep up with medium or light tanks. Here's a plus, though: the reverse speed is as good as the forward one is bad. On the other hand, who chooses a Landship to retreat? Forward and never look back. When this French tank finally gets to the battlefield, a second wave of bewilderment crashes down, this time on the enemy side. Some flee in panic. Others don't know what to fire at. Still others shoot all their guns, frantically trying to stop this menace. The panic and confusion alone are worth trying out the new Heavy. The armament of this French tank is a bit less impressive than its Soviet counterparts. There's only one gun, and the fire rate is way lower. But each time it shoots, it throws no less than 43 kilos of explosive-filled metal at the target. Should we even mention that no tank at this rank can survive such a pitch? The survivability is also pretty nice. Its armor isn't impenetrable, but there's enough space inside to soak up a few rounds. Even if the enemy gets close, it'll take them quite a while to incapacitate the entire crew. Your allies may even have enough time to come for help before they finish. The 2C bis is too slow to take key positions first. Its fire rate limits the number of frags you can score. But still, this unique tank may give you emotions you're unlikely to experience with anything else. For what seemed like the first time in his life, Lewis Curtis, a brave American fighter pilot, was experiencing something quite far from confidence. He was a true hero who piloted a Lightning over the Mediterranean Sea and managed to shoot down no less than 3 Bf-109s in his first flight. Quite a feat. Naturally, he earned his flying ace title soon enough. Then he won in a harsh fight against an Italian Folgore, knocked out a German bomber, and another fighter to boot. Next time, he was hit himself, got captured, but escaped and made it back to the Allies. He was sick and exhausted, but refused to go home. Having recovered, he got back to the front lines. That time, he piloted a Mustang over the Pacific. What an admirable type, wouldn't you agree? And then, he met this girl. Her name was Svetlana Shostakovich Brownell. She was beautiful, kind, smart, and talented, and she never lacked attention, even from men with much higher ranks. She was also an actress performing in USO tours. Although she'd only just started, she was already famous thanks in part to her uncle, Dmitri Shostakovich, a renowned Soviet composer who actually made it to the cover of Time magazine, and his 7th Symphony was on the radio all the time. And who was this Lieutenant Curtis anyway? Just a regular fellow from Indiana with a few wins to his name. So what if he asked her out? It took something much bigger than simple confidence and the title of a flying ace to win that girl. But the war was still going. During one of his patrols, Curtis was commanding 4 Mustangs in an unsuccessful attack at a small Japanese airfield on the island of Bataan. One member of his squadron received serious damage and had to make an emergency landing at sea. The lieutenant never intended to leave his fellow pilot behind. He was circling around him, providing cover and guidance for the rescue plane. Meanwhile, something truly odd was going on nearby. Curtis was heading back to his base when he spotted a C-47 transport flying. Wait, it was flying right at that Bataan Island, the one occupied by the Japanese. The lieutenant made a sharp turn and got closer. All his attempts to radio the transport failed. Curtis tried getting in front of the plane and rocking his wings to show the "follow me" signal, but the C-47 pilot was obviously lost and out of fuel. They probably planned to land on the closest airfield, never realizing they were flying straight into enemy hands. Knowing full well what horrors could await the crew and the passengers in that case, Curtis dared the unthinkable. He tailed the C-47 and sent a few accurate volleys at its engines, knocking both of them out. He then circled around watching the transport make an emergency landing on the water surface, made sure everyone got to their rafts, and called a rescue Catalina in. The next morning, the passengers were back in safety, including his fellow pilot and... imagine Curtis's surprise. Svetlana Shostakovich Brownell, the very one who Lewis Curtis had asked out the night before. She only evaded a terrible fate in the hands of the Japanese because Curtis shot down her plane. The command first wanted to court-martial the lieutenant, of course, but they had to admit his actions had been wise, practical, and absolutely correct. Curtis was in for an award, although he couldn't really care less about it. What he did care for was Svetlana, who now looked at him with true admiration. On the 2nd of April, 1946, they married, and they lived happily ever after. By the way, Curtis's Mustang is still exhibited in the Pima Air and Space Museum in Arizona, still rocking its victory marks. 7 German planes, 1 Italian, 1 Japanese, and 1 American. This is the story of a man who managed to shoot down his future wife and remain a hero. Today's round study is going to be aerial again, but we won't talk about guns or certain vehicles. This time, we're going to talk about Soviet 82mm and 132mm rockets, found in the arsenals of numerous aircraft. We'll start with the bigger ordnance, taking the high-explosive ROFS-132 and the later M13 UK. These rockets are very similar to big HE rounds used by tanks. They carry 4.5 and almost 5 kilos of explosives, respectively, providing a penetration rate of 39 to 40 millimeters. With their good velocity and accuracy, a skilled pilot can achieve successful hits at quite a distance. But why don't we try it in practice? The King Tiger and the Ostwind will be our targets today. We'll start with the SPAAG, and we destroy it with the very first hit. Let's try it again. The rocket misses and lands a hull away, but it's still enough to knock out the crew with the explosion. Which means you don't have to spend that much time on aiming at open-top vehicles. Just send a single rocket towards the enemy, and you're good enough. Now, what about the second target? No matter how many times we hit the Tiger, no significant damage is seen. The armor-piercing rockets, however, perform much better against heavy tanks, like the RBS-132. Their effect is closer to capped rounds. These rockets can get inside the hull and hit both the crew and the internal modules with overpressure and shrapnel. Their penetration rate, however, drops a lot with distance, and the best range is 400 to 500 meters. Moreover, they're heavier and slower, and you need a direct hit to destroy a target. This is the main flaw of these rounds when used against open-top vehicles. When you're attacking an anti-aircraft gun, having to get close and aim carefully might simply be too risky. As for the 82mm rockets, well, size does matter. The ROS-82 and the M8 don't have enough explosive filler to even scratch regular tanks, while open compartment vehicles require a direct hit. That's why the armor-piercing RBS rockets are much more efficient in practice. They have enough pen even for the King Tiger's roof, and the planes that carry them often attack much less formidable targets. Let's sum up. 132mm rockets can be easily used in both AP and HE versions. The choice is defined by the combat situation. If the enemy team has too many anti-aircraft guns and you see a lot of chat messages about your allies going down, choose the high-explosive rockets. If your main threat is tanks, feel free to load up on AP ones. By the way, War Thunder already has some aircraft that can carry both types of rockets thanks to the custom loadout capability. You can even combine the ordnance with them. As for the 82mm rockets, we recommend you only take the AP version. Well, enough with the rocket science today. Time to answer some of the questions you ask us in the comments. The first question was sent by a player called GoomerHoomer804. Which planes have thrust reversal? I didn't find any. Hi there. The Swedish Viggen and SK-60 have it, as well as all Tornado versions. By the way, the SK-60 and the Tornado can even use the reversal mid-air. The Max Die Cool asks, why is the M1128 so slow on snow and sand? Hi Max, the Striker's mobility is mostly limited by its modest engine power. However, we've recently reworked ground resistance for all wheeled vehicles and added a way to remove slat screens from the M1128. It's now much quicker. Feel free to test it. Another question comes from Stanterrain. What does the designated bomb point do and how do you use it? Hi Stanterrain. You probably mean the CCRP bombing system, which we talked about while answering your questions in the last episode. With this system, your ballistic computer tells you when to drop the bombs to hit the coordinates you've previously set. It isn't terribly useful against moving objects, but perfect for hitting stationary ones like bases and other targets in air battles. Geekaduzin writes, what about a video on the Mirage family? There's already a good amount of them in the game. Hi, Geekaduzin. We do have some plans for it. We can't promise to feature it in the next episode, but we're certainly going to talk about these famous French fighters. And the last comment for today was written by Dapper Llama. Can you find a tank triathlon in real life? If yes, where can I watch it? Oh, hi Llama! There's more than one, actually. The most popular ones are probably the Strong Europe Tank Challenge and the Tank Biathlon. It's easy to find videos online if you search for them. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to rock your wings before you shoot out our engines. Leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.